raise the roof for the creative team behind Sherlock, Vertue! Moffat. And the one and only Mr. Gatiss.
Thrones are good, thrones are good.
Welcome. I'm sure everyone knows, but just to get the ball rolling, can you tell us how Sherlock began?
Everyone in this room? Everyone in this room could tell you how it began, but do you want us to do it again? Do you?
Let's ask one person at a time to do one word.
Mark and me on the train discussing Doctor Who, realising everyone was listening to us and we had to discuss something else. So we discussed Sherlock Holmes, our equal obsession. Mark, your bit.
And then we talked about how we love the Basil Rathbone films the most, and the ones where they updated them to the Second World War the most. And we looked at each other and thought, well, someone should do that again. It's a brilliant idea. And because we were in the middle of another Afghan war, it was a strange coincidence that that's how it starts anyway. So it was a natural way in.
Your bit. I then mentioned to my wife that we were very, very cross at the idea that somebody else might one day make a modernised version of Sherlock Holmes when it really should have been us. And she looked at me uncomprehending as I wept and said, well, you could do it. And that did seem like a revelation. And so we had a meeting in Monte Carlo. No, we did. Where we pitched Sherlock Holmes to Sue, and we did a pilot, and it got on. I may have skipped a bit.
Hi, I just want to know, is Redbeard going to be in season 4? I love
Do you want to know how to find out what's going to be in season 4?
Please don't.
Watch season 4.
Oh.
Mycroft started off quite an ambiguous character at the beginning of the first series. And I noticed that he changed, his relationship with Sherlock started to change into he was a more prominent figure in Sherlock's life. Are we going to see him become much more involved in series 4?
Watch series 4. This is easy.
Now, Mark, the adventure drives Sherlock, that's his motivation. What is Mycroft's motivation? Because there's a scene that really quite upset me watching as it was either Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, and he's sitting alone looking into the fire, and that was really a tragic, heart-wrenching sequence. What is Mycroft's
power? It's like a Cyberman, I think, isn't it? He substituted power for all his emotions. Well, I think it's organisation. I think he's a very tidy mind, and Sherlock is outside the tent and he wants him in. But yeah, I think he's isolated. There's no one else in that big house, I'm afraid, except the running machine, the suit of armour.
He does a lot of diets as well.
A lot of diets, yes.
And Sue, is it your job to keep these two boys in order?
Yeah, they're quite easy to keep in order. I mean, they're such fans that the only thing I have to do is sometimes stop them talking and start them writing, I think.
I'm very excited. We had a very exciting meeting the other day, and it was, as it always is, it's just really just like sort of being in the playground and getting excited.
Yep, there we go.
Hi.
Doctor.
Hello.
You've missed by a whole show, mate.
I'm still missing him. Thank you, by the way, for picking Matt Smith. That was amazing. But my question is this: at the start of the empty hearse, there's a lot of you sort of answered how Sherlock died in a bunch of ways, and I realise, it's to make the audience sort of imagine their own different way of, answering the question. You don't really want to kind of give them an exact answer, but is there one? Because Anderson adds doubt to the end of that when Sherlock tells him, doesn't he?
It's only Anderson who doubts the truth. when he's told it. Look, there's only one version of the death that works.
Yeah.
Unless you think that really that dummy would have worked with the stuck-on face, and you really think that Darren Brown was co-opted.
That's my favourite.
So
It is my favourite too.
We should all go by Anderson.
But it's when he finally, it's almost treating Anderson as if he's a Sherlock fan, who, having been given the answer, simply didn't accept it and wanted another one. Hello. But look, do you know, can I just say this after all this time? If you watch the Reichenbach Fall again for the 800th time, you will note that John Watson cannot see the point of impact, right? So, it's really dead simple. As Sherlock fell, something got between him and the pavement. There's no other way. There's no other way to avoid dying. Right.
Thank you.
Or is there? No, the TARDIS isn't real. What? What do you say? Or is there?
Just keep it going. Keep it going. For the 10 years it's got.
Are you guys astounded by the sort of Twitter reactions and Facebook reactions to when each episode goes out? Because it's just the internet meltdown.
I think we're astounded by everything. We're astounded by this. I mean, this was what we thought was going to be a great show on BBC Two, and we thought it would be. Well, we thought it would be a good potential BBC One, BBC Two show. So it was never going to be BBC Two. Don't put that. But we didn't know it was going to do this.
No, it is amazing. And I mean, our non-announcement the other day that we were being recommissioned sort of exploded the internet. They interrupted the news, which I thought was extraordinary. It's a bit ridiculous. I thought there's probably a war going on, isn't there? We shouldn't really be doing this.
Another question, please. Lovely. Oh, there's a Benedict.
Hiya. You've worked on other modern day adaptations for like Yoxall, for instance. Why do you feel that Sherlock was so successful where other ones have failed?
Such as?
Well, thanks for bringing up the failure. I don't know. I think the truth is people showed up in the first place for Sherlock before they'd ever seen it. It was already a hit because there was a huge audience for the first show. So how did they know they were going to like it? Is the question. It must just have been exactly the right moment for people to watch an updated Sherlock Holmes. Because it turned out to be good, they carried on showing up. But it must just have been that, we must have caught the wave at the right moment, that we failed to catch on Jekyll.
Thank you.
Now, Sue, Stephen and Mark have said that they're big Sherlock Holmes fans. Were you a Holmes fan at all, or is it a job?
Shamefully, I had never read a Sherlock Holmes story at that point.
And now, Sue?
And now I have read
two.
In my defence, when they write a script, obviously there's an awful lot of the original Sherlock Holmes and Conan Doyle things in there, and so I take the part of the audience that hasn't read all the stories, and then I can make sure it works from a viewer's point of view, from the script, as opposed to being a Sherlock Holmes fan, and that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, thank God you bravely resist doing all that work.
Yeah. You are within slapping distance. Mark and Stephen, you spoke about your love of Basil Rathbone's Holmes. Were there any other Holmes that made an impact on you?
Well, yes. I mean, they all do this, Ian McKellen's about to play Sherlock, age 93, and he's about the 75th actor to play him. But obviously Jeremy Brett when we were growing up. But the other principal influence is the Billy Wilder film, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which is a masterpiece and a huge influence on our show. And the tone of our show, it's humour and it's melancholy as well, I think. We can exclusively announce, we've just discovered, this is our exciting thing of the day. The Blu-ray of Private Life is about to come out, and someone has found the audio of the missing epilogue in which Inspector Lestrade comes to Baker Street and says, "There's been some murders in the East End, Mr. Holmes." We're terribly excited. I don't know if you are, but we are.
They are.
Look at that
really
room
excited.
convulsing. My God. This is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to us.
And it's still
Look as though you're awake.
It's still out of the audio.
It's the audio of the epilogue of a film you haven't seen. That's our announcement for today.
Another question, please.
Hiya. obviously, whether you call it rudeness or banter or what, Sherlock has a lot of one-liners, and I was just wondering if any of you have a favourite particular line.
I think, what's it like inside your funny little brains is great. It's an instant statement of intent of him being not like us.
There's a very good rejoinder that Sherlock has to a line from Lestrade that Mark originally wrote and then cut, that I stole for one of my scripts and cut. So I'm not going to tell you what it is, it's very funny, I think.
That one?
Yeah, one day we're getting it in.
Don't you find...
I like it when it's... I've got one. Sorry. When he tells Anderson to turn around, he's lowering the IQ of the room. I like.
Oh, yeah.
But don't you find that when he did the best man speech, he was the most human person in that room because it all came from his heart, which was wonderful, I thought. It made him one of us, really.
Well, he'll never quite be one of us, but, you know, the interesting thing about Sherlock is he's a human being. I mean, he works to suppress his emotions to make his brain work better. That means he has emotions. Indeed, he means he has enough emotion that they could get in the way. So, yeah, he can be emotional. And
I think he protests a bit too much because he describes himself as a calculating machine and everything, and then you can clearly see in the stories that that's not true. He's pushing things down. He's trying to conquer his emotions, and eventually there is real development. He's not the same man in the last story as he is at the beginning because Dr. Watson does humanize him a little bit.
Another question, please. There we go, stand up.
We do know Sherlock's full name now, but does Mycroft have any middle names?
Middle name?
Yeah.
Oh, watch series 4. It's easy to say that. Well, we're not sure if Sherlock's telling the truth about those middle names. He might be just a gag, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Sherlock actually means blonde. You know that? It's curious. So none of it works really.
There we go.
Hi, I was wondering, in terms of personality, which of the Sherlock cast is most similar to their character?
none of them are that similar.
What do you think? Good question. Well, Una is exactly as lovable as Mrs. Hudson.
Yeah, that's probably true. Probably Una as Mrs. Hudson.
I mean, Benedict is very different to Sherlock.
He would be rubbish at solving crimes. He'd wander around a crime scene asking for a double latte and a car home. He would be crap at it.
That's an interesting question, that. But I'm not going to give an answer.
Another question, please. Stand up, thank you.
Hello, it's the Doctor.
Hello, Doctor.
This is for both Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss. My question is, what was the most difficult thing about modernizing Sherlock in terms of making it relevant, to today's society?
Genuinely, the most difficult thing was there was an instant rush of things, ideas we had, because there were certain things which just worked, like instead of telegrams, texts, having 3 nicotine patches instead of a 3-pipe problem, things like that was just fun. But the biggest problem was the question of whether he could still work in a world of forensics, in a CSI way. And the conclusion we came to basically was that he's always still the cleverest man in the room. And even though Scotland Yard now do the things they didn't do in the Victorian era, he is still the one who can make all the unlikely connections. And that makes him still a sort of superhero, really.
There's a couple of other sort of trivial ones. We did balk for a moment at what they were going to have to call each other, because in the stories, in all the movies, they call each other Holmes and Watson. And so actually saying it's going to be John and Sherlock, otherwise they're public schoolboys, that was tough. And the one that we completely bridled at, could not do, even though it's not in the original stories, is we had to put 221B on the door, even though that makes no sense at all. You never have the B on the door. That comes from Hollywood. But we wanted to put the 221B on the door so Mark and me could stand next to the door and be photographed. For no other reason.
Which we do every year.
Every year.
Do you know that up at the Sherlock Holmes Museum there's a door next to it? It's an old brass plate, and it says Moffat and Sons.
How did they know?
Now, Sue, were you involved in the casting process of Sherlock and John Watson?
Yeah, we always involved. I mean, we've been at all the main casting together. We sort of all sit there and...
She is actually the boss. She's involved in everything.
I thought that. In terms of casting Sherlock, he's very, I don't want to say Doctor Who-ish, but he does have that sort of alien type quality. Is that what you were looking for when casting Sherlock?
I mean, we were looking for, because obviously I know my Sherlock so well, I had to ask them what he'd look like, probably. But they, you described him as being tall with a, I think you said big nose originally,
yes,
but actually it's an aconine nose. And piercing eyes, and we'd been watching Atonement when we saw Benedict in that. So I said, well, could it be somebody like that? So we met Benedict, and he was the only one we met for the part, tall, and the BBC were fine. And then we had about 3 people that we did a sort of a meet with Benedict. So he read with about 3 different John Watsons. And then when Martin came in the room, and the chemistry between the 2 of them was just instant, and the 2 of them just sat there and said, "There's our show," and there was our casting.
Wonderful. Another question, please. There we go. Fez boy.
Hi. Does that work? Yeah. I understand between season 2 and 3 there was the almost 2-year gap, but that's because that happened in the series for John and Sherlock. Does that work?
2-year gap, yes.
Yeah, and that happened in the season, but I understand because we're waiting quite a while for the next season. Will that happen for John and Sherlock?
Do you mean, will it be 2 years later on in the story? Watch season 4.
Do you go out of your way to provide catchphrases that can go in t-shirts? Because that's now going to be in the t-shirt, watch season 4.
I don't think you can actually. I mean, we've had a bit of a running joke about what should go on a t-shirt, but I think catchphrases, you can't force them on the public. I'll digress briefly, but I remember when Larry Grayson took over the Generation Game, and of course Brucey had thousands of brilliant catchphrases, and they gave Larry Grayson one at the end of the conveyor belt where he said, "What a lot she's got!" Silence, and it just they dropped it after about 3 weeks. It just didn't work. So you've got to be careful. You can't force these things, but things just pop up really like that. This is a new one.
Watch season 4. Next, please.
Hi.
Right.
Hi. Would there be a possibility with comic relief or children in need to see a Doctor Who Sherlock crossover?
No, he got it right. We know what you're going to ask. No.
Watch season 4. Someone's done one on YouTube, which is really brilliant. I thought it's amazing, but I've always thought the version that people have in their heads of this entirely ridiculous idea is always going to be better than what anyone might come up with, because it'll just be a bit. I don't personally see the need for it, and they obviously exist in 2 different universes. You could do it for a comic relief thing because that would be fun, but I always think the version everyone's got in their heads will be better.
Do you think Sherlock would like the Doctor?
No, they hate each other. I mean, of course. And why would one turn up if the other one was already there? It would be, oh, it's your one, right, and they'd bugger off. I think the Doctor would be quite enthused, or the Matt Smith Doctor would have been quite enthused. The Capaldi Doctor, not so much. But,
watch season 8. Another question, please.
Come. 2 souls are better than 1.
So obviously, reading all the books growing up and rereading them again, there's so much information and so many repetitive stories. He kind of lets it go a bit and repeats himself.
Everyone's a critic.
How do you pick which parts you want? Because obviously you make a lot of changes, you make a lot of adaptations. How do you choose? How do you dissect these parts that you want? How do you stick them together from different plots? What's the process, really?
Well, there are, we've obviously got favourite stories, and they do tend to, we keep thinking about that. And then if we're sort of generally talking about where the series might go, sometimes the story just presents itself. Other times, there are just little bits and pieces, like the beginning of Baskerville is from Black Peter, which is a story we're not going to do, but the opening with Sherlock carrying a harpoon covered in blood is brilliant. So it's about sort of just cherry-picking things like that, really. But, for season 4, we're obviously, again, thinking about some of our favourites and how they might fit into an overall series.
But I mean, any of the stories that could be done as a show, we've already done, haven't we? As the ones that are long enough.
The long form, yes, yeah.
But it's villains and moments and gags that people don't know about. We've done all the big stuff. We did it quite early for the hell of it. But there are other villains that aren't as famous for no particular reason. Other scenes, other moments, and other jokes, actually. There's lots of humour in Doyle. And if we've done one thing right, we've mined the humour more than most people do. Because they are funny stories. There's an exchange at the beginning of The Valley of Fear that's hilarious between Holmes and Watson. Sure, we'll get to that at some point.
Another question, please. Yep, right up the very, very, very back.
How you doing? This is for Stephen and Mark. From a script writing perspective, which character is the hardest character to write for and why?
Which character? Between who?
I'd say between Sherlock, Moriarty, John, and Lestrade.
Sherlock Holmes is very hard to write for because he has to be hugely clever and he has to keep demonstrating it, which is why those deductions don't appear so often as we go. We've got to get back
in our
to
defence, Doyle dried up quite quickly as well. They're very difficult. Yeah, if you have to write someone who's incredibly clever, it pays to be incredibly clever.
Yeah. Sadly, we omitted that part. But no, he's tough to do. The humour, now that we've got into it, is I suppose comes to us relatively easily, and the lack of manners and so on. But the thing that remains difficult is he's got to not just say he's clever, he's got to be clever.
But also with John Watson, it is a challenge, and it was always a challenge in previous adaptations that when you read the stories, because he's narrating them, you're very aware of his presence, and the danger with an adaptation is that he's got nothing to do except make notes, and so to keep giving Martin a proper co-lead part, and yet not be constantly surprised, which becomes ridiculous. You can't sit there and go, good heavens, Holmes, why are you speaking like that all of a sudden? But you just can't keep that going, because he's obviously got used to it. So as we've developed it, we've thought a lot more about, Mary comes in and she doesn't know what Sherlock does. She doesn't know his tricks, so you can sort of rediscover him through his different eyes, really.
Now, you mentioned humour. Have there been any moments during the first 3 seasons where you've had a great belly laugh, thinking how brilliantly funny it's been?
No.
Well, actually, we were talking about an outtake. Talk about the outtake? The sheet out.
Well, there's a famous one in Scandal in Belgravia when I stand on Benedict's sheet and reveal his nakedness, and he was quite tightly.
He's all trussed up basically,
Yeah.
so he just falls
like the
over
mummy.
in this sheet.
And I just stepped on him
none
and
of
he
us
went
can help
over.
him because we're all laughing so much.
He broke all his teeth.
Another question, please. Up the other side of the back.
What was it about the role of Mycroft that made you want to take the part?
The money.
But
Power.
not much.
And do you have any similarities with your character?
Sorry, I can't see you, Mary.
Any similarities with your
Any
character?
similarities? I think I've said this before. It's exceptional dress sense, very nice bottom, and power. No, it happened because when we did the pilot and there was no Moriarty, there was no Mycroft, and then when we were rethinking it for a 90-minute format, we decided to move the whole Moriarty thing up a lot, and then we thought we'd bring in Mycroft, and we had this idea that if we presented him as Sherlock Holmes' arch enemy, people would think Mycroft was Moriarty, and it worked. And I think Stephen said, obviously, if I play it, they'll think the only person I would arrogantly want to play is Professor Moriarty. That worked as well. So it all worked, really.
But there was a scene in the first series, and we brought it forward, and Mycroft's trousers were they were being taken up, weren't
Yes,
they? And
my
so we didn't
trousers.
have them, but suddenly Mark said, "Oh, well, I've got a suit of my own." Now, only Mark could have a three-piece tweed suit in his own
The first
luggage.
one I wear is which is in The Great Game, was one of mine because the trousers had gone missing. They were otherwise it would be a very different scene.
Another question, please. There we go, just over.
Hello, Sue, Mark, Stephen, sorry. Following this massive success, congratulations. You now have a great influence over all the generations, and would you accept perhaps you have a social responsibility to be very careful in your portrayal of Sherlock's addictive nature and his addiction to heroin? And could I entreat you to continue to think about that very mindfully and thoughtfully in your excellent production, which I enjoy so much?
But it's never heroin. Never heroin.
No, it was cigarettes.
No, it's
Cocaine
cocaine
and morphine is what he was. And he was, if you look at the original stories, he's not addicted. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I may have misunderstood, but in fact, one of the things that we always get quite cross about, Mark and myself, is that is when films present him as being addicted to anything. He's addicted to solving crimes, and he goes for other highs if he can't get that. But it's not a big deal in the stories. It just isn't a big deal in the stories, so we mostly ignore it.
Had you seen the Nicol Williamson film where he plays Sherlock?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Robert Duvall's English accent is one of my favourite things in the world. It's a wonderful book, Nick Mayer book, and it's actually a rather lovely film. It's a brilliant idea. I think it's just one of those ones where Nicol Williamson's portrayal of Sherlock is actually so far away from Sherlock, and then you've got a very strange Dr. Watson. It becomes quite an odd film.
It's an oddity, that film. It's really worth seeing because the screenplay is terrific. And obviously Robert Duvall and Nicol Williamson are both brilliant actors, but hand on my heart, they're just miscast. They're not right, and that's why that film doesn't really fly the way the screenplay deserves to. It's a good script.
While we're on it, actually, another Sherlock film well worth seeking out is A Study in Terror with John Neville and Donald Houston. The screenplay of that is fantastic, and they're very, very literate. They really know their stuff. It's about Jack the Ripper, and it's a really clever one, isn't it?
It's got the best set of non-Doyle deductions ever about a little doctor's bag, and they are brilliant. It is also very funny. Again, they get the fact that it's meant to be funny. Mycroft's in it, great gags. Robert Morley as Mycroft. It's a terrific one.
We nicked a bit for Series 3 because it was on TV, it's rarely on, and I texted Steve and said, "Oh, Study in Terror's on." We watched it, and there's this outrageous ending where he's in a burning building and he definitely can't get out. And Adrienne Corrie is there, and the rafters fall down. Then it just cuts to Baker Street and having breakfast, and Watson says, "How did you get out?" And he says, "You know my methods, Watson. I'm well known to be indestructible." That's it. I said, let's have it.
And of course, Christopher Plummer on the subject of Jack the Ripper. He did 2 Holmes movies. It was a study.
He did there was another Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper called Murder by Decree.
That's the one.
With
He
Christopher Plummer.
did a TV version of Silver Blaze as well.
How did you rate? We're going through all the Sherlocks now.
And they're off.
How did you rate? I know it's fanboy talk.
I think Christopher Plummer's a sensational actor and well suited to it. I think they slightly softened him too much in that one. I thought that his Jack the Ripper one, I thought he wasn't cold enough. I thought they just went over the line to make him a little bit sweet. It's a good movie though.
Nice film, yeah. Frank Finlay playing Lestrade again.
In both of them.
Yeah, both of them, yeah.
But it's a good one.
I suspect he might have been Jack the Ripper.
It's the only evidence, yeah.
Another question, please, as time is running out. Who's near it? Stand up, yes.
What's your favourite part of making a series of Sherlock?
Bed.
The favourite part of making the series, this is always a depressing thing to say or sounds it, but I really like it when we finished it and it looks good. That's really good.
Oh, and actually, I would say that the first sort of ideas meeting, we did this on the last series Steve and I ended up on the top deck of the dining bus or something, and we sort of worked out series 4 and 5 in a very exciting afternoon. And I think when you're just throwing ideas at the wall, that's the most exciting bit, before you actually have to commit to writing it or paying for it.
Yeah, it starts well, it does this, and then it ends well.
When you compare this to most American dramas, which are on all the time, every year, year after year, do you feel you benefit from that long gap, that ability to do a couple of episodes over a longer period? Do you find that that's good for you? It may drive us nuts, having to wait, but do you think you could do that same quality if you had a 24 where you're doing it year after year?
It certainly makes it feel like an event, which is great, and obviously gives us a lot more time to work on it. But I think more than anything, it's the specialness which would go. I think if you as it is, we're sort of on for 3 weeks and then disappear again, just in time to avoid a backlash. But I think if we were doing even if it were possible to do 6 90-minute ones, it wouldn't feel quite the same. And we've sort of stumbled on this format, but it does work well. But I have to say, I'm mostly just lost in admiration for how American series do keep their quality up. I mean, it's incredible. When they do 8, 10, 13 episodes, it's remarkable, really.
Ladies and gentlemen, time's run out, I'm afraid. So please raise the roof for Sue, Stephen and Mark.
Thank you.